Hello and welcome to this special Valentine's Day edition of Bulls on Parade Talk. I am your host, Joshua Sines, and today's topic on Valentine's Day is about a certain draft prospect's love for his home state, and that is Johnny Manziel. He earlier today spoke with the Houston Chronicle and basically went off about saying how much he loves Texas and how he believes it would be a dream come true for him to play pro football here in Texas, specifically in Houston, right? And obviously he has a great love for his state. I mean, let's face it. Looking down here, he played at Tybee High School in Kerrville. He played, of course, as we all know, at Texas A&M, and now he is considered to be a potential top pick in this upcoming draft. And so basically, while he's been training with the Combine in San Diego, he talked to the Chronicle as well, and basically went on record and said, they asked him about his training and his draft status. But just potential questions about the draft and what he knows and such. And he's not being blunt. He's being very honest, and I appreciate that. I'm quoting here. He said he was asked, what happens if the Houston Texans don't take him. He said, "quote It would be the worst decision they've ever made." Right. So basically. So, just that right there said, whoa. And he went on and saying, I don't have the quote in front of me, but it said, he also said, like, he turned the chip on his shoulder from a Frito into a Dorito. And I'm like, better go out and show me at the Combine first before doing anything of that nature. But let me go on. He goes on and quote saying, "I'm a Texas kid. The state means a lot to me." So he obviously loves Texas. So more power to him. And he went on as to pound his chest and go on and say, quote, "I want to be the first rookie to win a Super Bowl." Love the confidence. I don't get me wrong. I've been critical of Johnny Manziel, his maturity and his reckless play. He and oftentimes his look for the big play. He doesn't take the check down all the time. He's always looking for the big play. And to be a risk taker like that, great. But you gotta know when to say when, right? You got to be able to say no. You got to be able to say, this guy is open. The deep routes are covered. Okay, who else do I got to look at? All right, that's the one thing his maturity and his consistent need to make a big play. But he's also been on record saying, quote, "I've matured. I've learned from my mistakes. I want to leave Johnny football behind." So, we'll see. I mean, he's got the Combine and his pro day to prove it. His own individual pro day to prove it. So, if he shows up and if he shows that he can do it, more power to Houston if we take him. I wouldn't take him. Not right now. I wouldn't take the only quarterback I think is the safest. The only quarterback I've been on record saying this, I'm going to say it again. Only guy I think worth taking in the first round is Teddy Bridgewater. Number 1 overall. He's the safest and he's the most polished guy. It's either him or Clowney. So, but moving on. Going on with his workout in San Diego. He's working with his coach. Not only is he working on his physical tools with his own coach, but he's also, according to the Chronicle, he said that he's been doing some film study with Kevin O'Connell. And for those of you that don't know Kevin O'Connell, he was a backup quarterback in New England when Bill O'Brien was an assistant under Bill Belichick. So It's so basically he's gonna walk into those interviews with Bill O'Brien and Bob McNair and basically draw up a play and say, "Hey, this is your 3rd and 21 at the Super Bowl." You know, so we'll see if he's able to go in there and dissect the play, see how his IQ looks, and so Johnny Manziel is basically daring Houston to take him number 1 overall, saying, "I want Houston to look at me and say, I can win with this guy." So he's talked about how he's spent time with Andre Johnson, Arian Foster, especially at the Rockets game this last season. Like, I saw those games. I watched those games on TV, and where the camera was basically focused on Johnny Manziel after he won the Heisman Trophy, and we all know that what happened, and we all know that that story. But there's all this talk. Johnny Manziel says, "Hey, Houston, take me number 1 overall. I dare you. I double dare you." Right? It's almost like, although in 2000, and I swear, I looked at this story and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. This is almost like deja vu, don't you think? I mean, the Houston Texans in the 2006 NFL draft had the number 1 pick overall, and we were coming off a 2-12 season then, 2-14 season then. I'm sorry. We came off another 2-14 season, and that was when Gary Kubiak that was I think Gary Kubiak's first season, if I remember correctly. So there was a lot of pressure on Gary Kubiak to get that draft right, and I look back at that draft, and in 2006, I'm looking at these notes. I'm looking at these notes from 2006 after doing some more research. And in that draft, you had guys like Reggie Bush, Vince Young, and the guys that we don't really talk about, Mario Williams and Jay Cutler. Think about this for a minute. The Texans had the number 1 overall pick. Reggie Bush is just coming off a Heisman Trophy winning season, where basically he had some of the most legendary college highlights you'll ever see based on what people were saying about him. And, Vince Young was coming off a big-time national championship win. I'm sure a lot of people in Texas remember that. And, in that draft, everyone was saying, Houston, you got to take Reggie Bush or Vince Young. I'm sure everyone in Houston was pressuring the Texans to take either Vince Young, the hometown hero, or Reggie Bush, one of the most electrifying college players, ever at the time, in for his generation. And you can see why a lot of people were clamoring for a guy like Vince Young or Reggie Bush. Because we needed a spark on offense. Because we needed help at the quarterback spot. Because David Carr was David Carr. Albeit the offensive line had some blame too, but that's another issue. Vince Young. Everyone talks about Vince Young, right? In that draft, but the one guy that some people overlook maybe is Jay Cutler. Because he's a Vanderbilt guy. He's a Vanderbilt guy. Didn't win a lot of big games in college, much like Peyton Manning. And, he ended up going to a Pro Bowl when he got into college, when he got into the pros. Vince Young, he was criticized as having a very awkward sidearm throwing motion. And, there was this whole fiasco with the Wonderlic test saying that he scored I think a 6. And then after redoing the test, he scored a 14, the same score as a guy like Dan Marino. And Bob McNair at the time, I remember reading these quotes. He was like, oh, this guy's got talent. The Texans were pretty much leaning towards taking an offensive guy or defensive end Mario Williams. And on the day of the draft, I read the stories. I've read it all. It's like Houston shocked the world, right? Like they decided to go away from what the public opinion thought. We're not going to take with this electrifying guy. We're going to take Mario Williams because he graded higher. He was the best player on their board. And I guarantee you the whole world, the whole NFL world was in shock that nobody took, that Houston did not take Vince Young or Reggie Bush #1 overall in the draft. Reggie Bush ended up going to New Orleans. Vince Young got taken 3rd overall by Tennessee. Jay Cutler ended up going to Denver. So we took Mario Williams, and everyone was in shock, but except maybe one person, other than Houston, there was probably only one other person that probably commended Houston for that, and later on it paid off. How I normally don't listen to what ESPN has to say, especially since Disney now owns them. But anyway, Michael Smith, one of the co-hosts of Numbers Never Lie today, he wrote a piece on ESPN about either taking defensive end or running back 1st overall in this, and who has the better long-term success. Who's better long-term? And that's the thing about this draft that a lot of people don't realize. It's the one thing that people confuse things with college and with the NFL. They think it's a win-now league. It's not. This isn't college. College is a win-now league. In college, you have to win now. In the NFL, the NFL is more like a mortgage. It's like you compare college football. I've heard the comparison of an apartment complex, like a short term, like something to win short term. In the NFL, it's a mortgage. You build your foundation around the quarterback play, around your best player, and then you build around it for the next 15 years. And over time, you get more pieces in place around this marquee guy for success. Bill Belichick has done that consistently over his career. It's not about winning in the NFL. It's not about winning now, and that's the key. It's not about immediate success. If it is, then you're going to have a lot of... If it is, then no wonder these teams like Cleveland not today are struggling. Because they try to focus on winning now. Because obviously their fans are impatient. But anyway, going back to Michael Smith and his article. He went on about saying that drafting Mario Williams would be the best long-term solution for the Texans. And for those of you that paid attention, it did. In his first season, I think he recorded 14 sacks. In his next season, 12. So you look at a guy like Mario Williams coming out of NC State, and I'm looking down here at his measurables. He measured 6'7", 295 to 300 pounds, and still growing. And he's still growing. He recorded around a 4.65 40 time, and he had a 40.5-inch vertical. A lot of scouts, when they were looking at Mario Williams, they compared his skill set to a mixture of Julius Peppers and Richard Seymour. Oh, and one little thing about Julius Peppers, just something to think about. Just a little note about Julius Peppers. Coming out of college, people were questioning his motor. They were not questioning his quickness off the line. They were not questioning his skill set. The only thing that they questioned was his motor. Something that J.J. Watt was never questioned. Mario Williams, that his motor was something that was never questioned. Julius Peppers had a questionable motor, and look what happened to him. He's done pretty good for himself. Now, he's done pretty good for himself. Not today, of course. Not now, of course. But, over his career, he has shown that he's a capable pass rusher, and he's proven it. He's proven it. So, that's just one thing about... That's just the one thing about these exciting college players that you really have to look at with some skepticism. And that's the one thing about Vince Young and Jay Cutler, mainly Vince Young. Vince Young, when they looked at him, they wanted to draft him high because of his upside. And it's the one thing that I heard talking, for example, in the 2012 draft with Andrew Luck and RG3, was who would you take first overall? And there was this debate about comparing the two. You can't compare them. And, there was a lot of talk about Robert Griffin III's upside. But you're talking about the number 1 overall pick. And if you're talking about the number 1 overall pick, you have to be sure that that's the guy that you want taken with that pick. Now, of course, it's not going to affect your franchise money-wise. I'm just saying, you take a guy with that kind of pick, it's immediate pressure. With the number 1 overall pick, it's immediate pressure to produce. To come in and say, okay, you're our guy. Here's the playbook. Learn all of it. First game, go. That's basically what you're telling your top pick. That's what they told Cam Newton to do. That's what they told Sam Bradford to do. That's what they told Andrew Luck to do. And Andrew Luck is the best prospect that we've seen coming out of college since probably Peyton Manning at the quarterback spot. And he was taken number 1 overall by the Colts. Well deserved. Exactly like a lot of people were saying. So this whole thing, and remember, Robert Griffin III won the Heisman Trophy. Andrew Luck didn't. He had a better skill set. And people were questioning Mario Williams' play in college was against lesser competition. I keep hearing the same nonsense all over the place. The one argument I always use with quarterbacks that are successful, look at the quarterbacks that are in the league now. Matt Ryan went to Boston College. Joe Flacco played at Delaware. Jay Cutler, Vanderbilt. Colin Kaepernick, University of Nevada. Russell Wilson, he played at NC State and then went to Wisconsin. Drew Brees, Vanderbilt. Drew Brees, Purdue. Not Vanderbilt. Purdue. Tony Romo, Eastern Illinois. And there's a quarterback in this draft class from Eastern Illinois that a lot of people are saying could be a second-round talent. I don't see a lot of people talking about him. So this whole thing with, and what's happened to guys like Mark Sanchez and Carson Palmer and Matt Leinart. You remember, Matt Leinart was a first-round talent. He was taken in the first round, I believe, and look where he is now. A USC guy. Heisman Trophy winner, USC. Talented guy taken by USC, and look what happened. Taken to USC and into the pros, one of the top picks. What happened to him? Nothing. So this whole thing with these exciting Heisman Trophy winners, just because you win and put up high stats in college, these stats in college, I don't care who you compete against. Numbers are one thing. But the thing is, do you have the skill set? Do you have that skill set, that DNA, that resilience to walk into an NFL locker room and put up with a lot of things? Injuries, head coaches, a lot of criticism. It's all these different things about, well, basically, you walk into the league and you're not going to be shown any love until you go out there and prove yourself. You're going to have all these numbers in the combine. You can run a 4.4. You could have one of the best pro days of your ever in the history of pro days. You can have all of these different things, but it's not going to change. But it's not going to, and you know, with having those kinds of things, you're going to be given the opportunity to be taken in the first round. But once you get into that NFL locker room, it's a new world. It is a new world. The stage is bright. Everyone is going to be watching you to see how you do. That's what the pressure of being the top pick in the draft is about. So, and a lot of people have said, oh, Johnny Manziel's box office. Well, does Houston have a problem with box office numbers? I don't think so. Last time I checked, Houston sold out Reliant Stadium all season. Especially considering the expectations going into the season. Hell, even when we weren't doing so good, people were coming to the games. So we don't need any help with with ticket sales. We got them. We don't need that kind of help. Now, would he bring extra attention? Sure, but do we really need it? No, I don't think so. We've already Plus, you're talking about drafting a guy who really needs to show some kind of improvement, especially from the pocket, especially knowing that he's able to read defenses and not look just to one side of the field. You know, it's the one thing about playing NFL quarterback is that you cannot be a half-field guy type player to be considered great, to be considered elite, to be considered a tier one, or even a tier 2 quarterback. You have to be able to go through progressions. You have to be able to read defenses, especially with the way that defenses are run in the NFL, with all these creative defensive minds, you know. So that's the one thing I would say about, because you know, going back to the 2006 draft and Jay Cutler didn't have a lot of success, quote unquote, in college, but you know, he came into the pros and and he's a Pro Bowl quarterback. He's a Pro Bowl quarterback in the pros. He's shown that he can. He's shown that he has the skill set to play in this league. That's my point. Jay Cutler has shown that he has NFL type skills for the quarterback position. Now, the combine is next weekend, and we're gonna see if NFL scouts, NFL people love or hate the guys. So it's gonna be a fun journey, I'll tell you that much. These exciting college football players, you cannot immediately say that they're deserving of the number 1 overall pick. You can't. Another good example in the 2010 draft, Tebow. Look at Tebow. He is being proclaimed by a lot of people to be the best college football player in history by some people. But look where it happened to him in the pros. He had one little stint. He's not an NFL quarterback. He doesn't have the skill set to be an NFL quarterback right now. And now no NFL team wants him to be an NFL quarterback except Jacksonville, that want to sell out tickets. But that's it. He's not a long-term. He's not a long. You're not going to build. Any smart guy wouldn't build a team around Tim Tebow. That's dumb. Unless you want to kill your franchise. Unless you want to set your franchise back. Money-wise and talent-wise. Just so all these, I mean, you cannot go with these hunches anymore. You cannot go with hunches anymore. You can't go with, oh yeah, this guy did this in college. No. You know, and the perfect example is Houston, and the perfect example that I got to see play up close and personal is Case Keenum. Being a Houston Cougar, I watched Case Keenum play his entire college career. And I'll tell you one thing, the guy can fling the football. And we all saw snippets of that in his little run that he had with the Houston Texans. So, and he is the NCAA's all-time leading passer. The most prolific passer in college football history. And you can all say it's against bad competition. Forget that. Forget that. I saw a guy that has the skill set to have what it takes. That he has the skill set to be an NFL quarterback. It's the same thing that people say about, you know, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, I believe, is one of the best West Coast guys, West Coast quarterback guys. You know, he's a master of the West Coast offense. And Case Keenum has quickly mastered the West Coast offense in under 2 years in Houston. And he went out there and proved it on certain West Coast plays that he ran under center and in the pistol. Especially when he had to take drops under center. Some plays he looked good, some plays he didn't. But the point is that he has shown that he can do it. That's my thing with him. You know, because I saw a guy that has the skill set to be a pro quarterback in Houston. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't gimmicky. He wasn't... and he never pounded his chest at all. He remained humble his entire journey, especially considering the kind of adversity that he had to go through and that I saw him go through up close, and that I saw him go through during his time at Houston. And everyone looked at him and said, nope, doesn't deserve to be drafted. If anything, a 7th round pick. People looked at Russell Wilson. Maybe because he's too short, dropped in the late rounds. Fran Tarkenton, seen as too small, dropped in the 3rd round. So, this whole thing about Johnny Manziel, you would think that some people would learn by now from the 2006 draft that you cannot go by hunches. You cannot go on saying, oh, that guy's a winner. You can't go with hunches anymore. You can't go with something that sounds right. You know, there's numbers, there's analysis, there's quantitative analysis, there's scouting. That's what these guys are paid to do. And so our scouting department has a lot of work to do. So I believe, based on my own personal scouting, I'm no professional. You know, I watched all these top prospects play in college, most of them. I've yet to go. I'm still doing some homework on a couple of these guys, but I watched a lot of these guys play. All I'm saying is these guys guys like Johnny Manziel, especially Johnny Manziel. He, I believe, is the only electrifying quote-unquote player in this draft that everyone's putting the spotlight on. You know, Reggie Bush is, you know, because Reggie Bush had highlights in college that are considered by some legendary. Vince Young, of course, Heisman Trophy winner and a national champion. A big winner in Texas. Everyone wanted the hometown hero, and even the fans criticized the Mario Williams pick until he actually showed it on the field that he can do it. till he proved everyone wrong, till he proved everyone what he's really made of. And to this day, there are a lot of people that are looking back at that draft and saying, wow, we really got that one right. And a lot of people are saying that was a gutsy play by Houston. Now, would it be a gutsy play to draft Johnny Manziel? Sure it would. I think it would probably be one of the gutsiest draft picks in history, I would think. Considering his skill set. Now, you can tell me, oh, it's a quarterback-driven league. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care that it's a quarterback-driven league because that's not the point. That's not how you win championships long term. You need a quarterback, yes, but he's not necessarily in the top of the first round. Jay Cutler wasn't taken. Jay Cutler created some buzz late, but come on. No one expected a lot of things from Jay Cutler. A lot of people didn't expect Jay Cutler to really be good. Everyone expected Matt Leinart to be good. Look what happened to him. You cannot go with these kinds of hunches anymore just because they won in college. Especially these guys that came out of top programs. That's why you have to really watch these guys play. You cannot go with what these so-called experts say or these so-called guys that have hunches say. You like Mel Kiper Jr. Mel Kiper Jr. thinks he should be taken #1 overall. He's the same guy who said Andre Ware would be one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. No disrespect to Andre Ware. That's my guy. That's a Houston Cougar right there. But he didn't do so well in the NFL. You have to be careful with this #1 overall pick. You have to take the best player on the board. You have to take and yes, we need a quarterback, but you know what? This class is filled with very talented quarterbacks. And Bill O'Brien is a quarterback guy. He worked under Tom Brady. He worked with Matt McGloin and Christian Hackelback at Penn State. He ran a New England style offense at Penn State. Was very productive. Did very good things for that Penn State program in his short 2 years there. I still think Jadeveon Clowney is the #1 overall pick in this draft. So Jadeveon is out there proving it with bone spurs in his right foot. And I've already made a video on that. You can go check that out. It's just something to really give you guys something to think about as we head into the combine. And the combine, I'm sure, is gonna show something to certain scouts. Measurable wise, athleticism. Oh, we're all gonna get to see that. So we'll see. We will see. It's going to be one of those very, very interesting things. It's going to be one of those very interesting things moving forward. So, I love the confidence. Jadeveon and Johnny Manziel have both gone on record saying, I want to be taken #1 overall. We will see. So, that pretty much wraps about things up here on this edition of Bulls on Parade Talk. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed, please leave a like on this video. I'd appreciate it. And in the comment section below, tell me what you think about Johnny Manziel's comments. Do you think he's being arrogant? Do you think he's being confident? Do you think he's being cocky? Do you think Houston should take him #1 overall, or do you think do you think we should wait to get a quarterback? Do you think we should take someone else #1? Should we trade the first pick? What should we do with the #1 overall pick? Is Johnny Manziel even worth the top pick of this draft? Tell me in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you guys. For more Houston Texans coverage provided by yours truly, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. I'll be here all year covering the latest in Houston Texans news, reports, ideas, discussions, rumors, etc. And finally, please be sure to check out my Bulls on Parade Talk podcast on TalkShoe.com if you haven't already. The full link to this podcast will be in the description below this video. And on a final note, please be sure to, on this Valentine's Day, I hope everyone had a nice and safe Valentine's Day. In my opinion, Valentine's Day is every day. But I hope you went out there and showed the people that you care about how much they really mean to you. I know I certainly do every single day of my life. I think every day is Valentine's Day. So with that, this is your host, Joshua Sines, signing off.